So let's just talk real about the redefinition of terms and words, especially when it's politically expedient, okay? There's a segment of society right now that is capitalizing on pain and abuse. And when that segment of society capitalizes and is able to perform their acts and do the things that they want to do, what they're doing is they're degrading an actual civilization and a society, okay? So Western civilization right now is under attack basically by individuals who have other ideas about what society should look like, and they're doing their best to, move that agenda forward. Well, when you have advocates who are doing the same things for these people, what you have is a concerted effort to minimalize abuse. And when you minimalize abuse, you allow another group of people to be exposed to terror, okay? Absolute terror, T-E-R-R-O-R, terror. And I say that intentionally because it is terror. Now, I'm just going to give you 4 abuses. I'm just going to call it out for what it is, okay? We're witnessing right now elder abuse. Elder abuse right now from a presidential candidate who's being abused by individuals who just need him to be in a position so they can get power. You and I both know that. It's unfortunate, but we're watching it. Now, previously, that wasn't something that was called legitimate and wasn't something that people would be advocating for. But you see an individual who's got a diminished mental capacity. I said it a long time ago, and I'll say it again. What he's experiencing right now is elder abuse, and he's being used. And it's unfortunate, and we watch it, and it's terrible seeing it, and that's actually pretty sad. And to call it what it is what it is, okay? It's just what it is what it is. Everybody knows it. We're all watching it, but folks need power. The second is child abuse, okay? And child abuse is where adults use minors and children for their purposes. Now we're seeing where children are being exposed to adult sexual issues, adult issues with violence, and adult issues with, let's just say a predatory nature on what you would call maybe the lesser, okay? So when children are exposed to abuse, you'll see adults encourage them to use cuss words or encourage them to be sexually active or exposed, or even encourage them to be in situations where they have no power. They just have to watch. Now, we saw that with one individual who took his child to a situation that was absolutely detestable. That's where we get to the next one, which is domestic violence. And domestic violence is actually terrible for the woman, because usually it is women, the statistics show it that way. But when a woman can count on the individual who's abusing her to be supported, not only by maybe a politician, but maybe by major sports leagues with their names on helmets and stuff like that, you got to understand that what that does for the society in general. Because now you've put up on a platform individuals who do not have the moral compass to keep themselves in check, no matter what their background may be. Believe me, I can tell you all types of things as knowing the situations and knowing my own background with this stuff. It's pretty terrible what happens, and this is not a good thing, okay? It's not a good thing at all. And folks maybe get mad about how the circumstance played out, but you have to understand, if the first wasn't in the situation where they were in, where they had actually been under a restraining order, then next they hadn't sexually abused, which I'm gonna get to next, the individual, and then third brought their child to the situation, this wouldn't even be in play, okay? This wouldn't be in play if they just obeyed the law, but they weren't going to. That's what that looks like. And then the next one is sexual abuse, and that's actually what that woman experienced. That's what several women experienced, which is actually what the whole Me Too thing was about. And that's why when you see a Rose McGowan who stands up and is basically calling out Hollywood for what's truly happening, the individuals that they were willing to say something against, the people who they were not willing to say the same thing about. You see that it was a political thing because it all stopped with a certain individual was named, potentially being a Me Too, a person who would be accused under Me Too, right? But then it stopped the moment that, you know, it could affect them. You even saw that with the Kavanaugh hearings as well, too. I mean, these are people who use these things for their own purposes. So child abuse, sexual abuse, elder abuse, and then domestic violence. Now, you need to know this, okay? A person who's experiencing these things, they go through an actual traumatic cycle in their head. They will replay those events over and over again in their minds because they actually experience what's called post-traumatic stress disorder, okay? They'll go through it, and it'll probably take them years to get through that. And believe me, again, these things, they end up basically becoming a train that goes through their entire life. But anybody that's connected to them will possibly be connected to that train, especially their kids. The kids will actually most likely will be either abusers or will gravitate to abusers, or they will be abused. Okay, so that they'll end up being on the same train. They'll either be the ones abusing people or they'll be abused. And this is actually very terribly unfortunate. But the terror is where they cannot stop a physiological response in their body to a traumatic situation that may ignite or flare up or cause them to remember the trauma, and that trauma will play out in their lives. It's actually a physiological response. It's a terrible thing to witness and to experience. But this is actually what happens, and what's happening in our society right now, where the abusers are being redefined as heroes and the abused are being silenced. And how does that play out for you and me? Well, we're watching it. We're seeing people use issues of ethnicity to terrorize other individuals. We're seeing people who are abusers take advantage of cultural so-called movements and use them to push their wallet, or they're using it to push their desires of continued abuse. This is a very sad state of affairs. And our society right now is under attack just on the basics of things that are good for our society, and the things that are meant to build it up, and things that are actually against it, which are to tear it down. If individuals who are women or children cannot count on their society to put down abusers, to hold accountable individuals who are not just off of a rumor saying something stupid, which obviously was stupid at the time, you know what I'm talking about, but people who are actually under indictment, who have restraining orders, and who are under warrants, people that actually have warrants underneath their name, and we hold these people up as heroes, things are being flipped on its head. And you need to know that what that means for you and I. It means that we will be left alone while these same people are advocating for removal of the police, to defund them, because that's what they're doing. They're defunding the police. They're trying to remove your ability to protect yourself. So the society becomes a perpetual victim of abusers. And you and I have a choice about that. And that's what people are advocating basically for, turning their, like they say in the Christian realm, turn your cheek. No. There's a time where you stand. I'm a mandated reporter because I'm a pastor. So I'm a mandated reporter. That means that when I see something that happens, I need to say something. And if you're not a mandated reporter, you don't know what that actually means. You don't know what it's like, okay? And I'm just gonna give you one example, okay? The first time I actually, as a mandated reporter, where I sat across from a 7-year-old little girl who basically was telling me she wanted to give her life to Christ. She said, I need to know that I am forgiven for what I allowed this person to do to me. And I'm gonna tell you, like, what welled up in me was anger. First off, that she thought she did something wrong, but then next that somebody actually would do something to this little girl, so the Hispanic girl. And I thought to myself, like, if I could, I would probably do something very terrible to this person that did this to this girl. But her next statement was this: I don't want to grow up to be a person who's afraid. And that's where it changed. Because I realized that the person, this little girl, was much stronger than most people are. But she understood that there was a soul thing happening inside of her that couldn't be tainted. And she didn't want it to be tainted. And she was asking Christ to come into her life to give her strength. Now, the soul issue that's at heart here is that people don't even believe that they actually have a soul. So they can do whatever they want to, and they can, use people for what they want to do and manipulate and all that kind of stuff and abuse them. But there is a judge at the end, which is probably one of the best characteristics of God that I gravitate toward, which is justice. And that's one thing that you and I both need to understand. There will be justice in the end. That always will happen. But right now, we as a society need to stand up for justice and against the unjust. And that the redefining of abuse to victors and to heroes is wrong. And to do so comes at the detriment of the two most vulnerable pieces of our population, women and children. And as men, as a man, I don't want to do that. But you get to make that choice as well. But you have to understand what it means to be an abuser and to be abused. And to know that when we are advocating for, despite of all the ethnic stuff, okay, black folks right now are freaking tripping, and how they treat other people right now is terrible. And there's no justification for it. You can't go out there and tell me this is about George Floyd, because it's not. It's not about police brutality, because it's not. It's about basically doing bad things and thinking that you can get away with it because of what you look like. I'm gonna call it what it is. So now there will be a point in time where we talk about police reform and all that, but right now we need to just go to the basics of our society. Are we going to be a society that advocates for abusers? Or are we going to be the society that says no? So the folks on the couch who look back and they say, this is wrong, you're not wrong in thinking that, because what's happening right now is bad. But you need to understand that there's a lot more of us like that than there are folks that are on TV yelling about, you know, these so-and-so lives matter while they destroy people's lives and hurt other people. It's time to call right. It's also time to call wrong. And right now, those things are wrong. Elder abuse, child abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence, they're wrong. And you need to know it.